The Vilna Gaon in this week's Parsha makes a fascinating insight. He goes through the discussion that Avram Avinu has with Ephron HaChiti, buying Maras HaMachpelah in order to bury Sarah and future generations of the Avos. And he notes that there's a phrase that repeats itself again and again and again, 7 times. And the Vilna Gaon asks, the phrase is really unnecessary to say again and again. What is that phrase that happens 7 times? The Pasuk says, as Avram Avinu is asking to buy the cave, he says, Ekvor et meti, kvor et metecha, kvor metecha, likvor et meti, kvor metecha, vekperat meti. That was 6. And the final one, vet metecha kvor. It says, and bury, and bury, and bury, and bury, 7 times. And the Vilna Gaon works out that he could have said the whole thing with 3 times. The Torah didn't need to repeat that phrase 7 times. And the Vilna Gaon asks a further question about the order of the psukim. Within the first 6, it says the word kvor first and the word metecha second. But in the last one, it switches the order and it says vet metecha kvor. So once we're being medayik in this phrase that's being repeated again and again, let's also note the order. Why does it say 6 times the order is first the word kvor and then mate? And then the 7th time is first the metecha kvor. And the Vilna Gaon makes a fascinating insight, and it really struck me now with everything that's going on in our times. The Vilna Gaon writes that there's a difference between tzaddikim and rashaim. Tzaddikim in this world are called alive, and even in the next world they're still called alive. Even when they die, they're still called alive. Rashaim, Chazal tell us, in this world, even before physically they've died, they're already called dead. So what are the 7 times that it repeats the phrase kvor et metecha again and again? Well, we know that Adam and Chava were already buried in Maras Machpelah. And there were 6 more people destined to be buried there. Avraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Leah, that's 6. And the Gemara famously tells us that at the time when they came to bury Yaakov in Maras Machpelah, Esav stood up to stop them and say that it's my birthright to be buried here, until eventually his head was chopped off and rolled into Maras Machpelah as well. So from the time that Avram Avinu bought Maras Machpelah, there were 7 people who were buried there. About 6 of them the Pasuk is alluding to when it says kvor et metecha. And about the 7th one, which is referring to Esav HaRasha, it's alluding to when it says vet metecha kvor. And now we can also understand the order it's switching. Because Avram, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka and Leah were tzaddikim. They were considered alive even when they passed away. So it doesn't grammatically work to first say metecha kavur, to bury the dead, because they weren't really dead. They were already still alive. Their kavura took place whilst their spirit was still alive. So why does it say the fact they died afterwards? That's the Gemara in Shabbos, right at the end of Masechah Shabbos, Naf Kuf Nun Beis, says that in Tchias HaMesim, even the tzaddikim will die momentarily and then come back to life. So by the tzaddikim, they first are buried, kavor, and only afterwards, meitecha, the time of Tchias HaMesim, they come back to life. That's why I had to say 6 times, kavor et meitecha. Regarding Esav, he was considered dead already, even during his lifetime, because the Rashaim are considered dead even in their lifetimes. And therefore that last phrase, meitecha kavor, because he was dead even before the burial. Why this point struck me very greatly is that we're at a time now where many people, tzaddikim, even if they weren't tzaddikim in the way that we would relate to people in their lifetimes, but anyone who dies al Kiddush Hashem is considered a tzaddik. We're at a time which is very challenging for Am Yisrael. We're at a time where many people have given and currently are putting their lives on the line for the sake of Klal Yisrael. And the concept that tzaddikim in their lifetime and even after their death are considered alive is a concept which perhaps means that to be alive means you're connected to something greater. You're connected to Klal Yisrael and Klal Yisrael's mission of being a nation to declare Hashem's name in the world. If a person is alive and declaring Hashem's name in the world through learning Torah, through davening, through doing mitzvahs, or if a person is willing to give up their life for the sake of saving other Jews, of eradicating evil from the world, that's something which goes above the body. That's something which, even if they're no longer with us, they're considered alive. The tzaddikim are considered alive even after they've passed away, because they've connected to a higher concept, a higher force. They've connected to declaring Hashem's name in the world. Ashreinu shezachinu. How fortunate are we, the Jewish people, that whether we're here or whether we're no longer here, either way we're considered alive, declaring HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name in the world. V'atem advekim b'Hashem elokechem. Those attached to Hashem. We're attached to Hashem in our lives, and we're attached to Hashem being willing to give up our lives for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have a wonderful Shabbos.